Right now, somewhere in your refrigerator, there is a carton of orange juice that has never actually been fresh. It says not from concentrate on the front. It shows a sun rising over an orange grove. What it does not tell you is that the juice inside was pasteurized, then run through a process called deaeration that strips the oxygen straight out of it, so it can sit in an aseptic storage tank the size of an oil tanker for up to a year before it ever reaches your store. Stripping the oxygen also strips the flavor. So before that juice gets poured into your carton, a fragrance house like Givaudan or Firmenich builds a flavor pack to put the taste back in. That flavor pack never has to appear on the ingredient label, because on paper, it is technically made from orange byproducts. This is not a rumor. It was documented by researcher Alyssa Hamilton in her book Squeezed, published by Yale University Press in 2009, and it was reported again by ABC News in 2012. None of that is a secret ingredient or a conspiracy. It is standard industry practice, sitting in plain sight, and almost nobody outside the industry has ever heard the words deaeration or flavor pack before tonight. Tonight we went through federal court filings, Food and Drug Administration records, and independent lab tests to expose 11 of the worst offenders in the orange juice aisle. The lawsuits over what natural actually means, the fungicide the government found and never recalled, and the brand you trusted most that quietly stopped being what it claimed to be. Stick around, because by the end we are also handing you 5 brands doing this honestly, and a short lesson in reading a juice label so none of these 11 tricks can ever catch you off guard again. And that 11th name on the list, the one we saved for last, is the one that proves none of this is really about the cheap brands at all. Let's start with the worst one we found. Number 1. Simply Orange, owned by Coca-Cola. This brand built its entire identity on being the honest alternative, a clear plastic jug instead of a waxed carton, nothing hidden. But in December of 2022, a class action lawsuit called Lurenz versus Coca-Cola was filed in the Southern District of New York, alleging that independent lab testing found forever chemicals sitting in Simply Orange at levels the complaint puts at more than 100 times the Environmental Protection Agency's health advisory limit. The lawsuit also points out that Simply Orange goes through the exact same deaeration and flavor pack process as every other carton on this list. The honest jug is just as engineered as the rest, according to classaction.org's coverage of the filing. So the brand selling you purity is being sued over chemicals that do not break down in the human body, chemicals linked over time to kidney and liver strain, according to the same complaint. Number 2. Minute Maid, also owned by Coca-Cola. In January of 2012, Coca-Cola's own internal testing found a fungicide called carbendazim in orange juice made from Brazilian oranges. At levels the company itself measured as high as 35 parts per billion. The Food and Drug Administration confirmed the finding and began testing incoming juice shipments at the border. And its own broader testing across import shipments later turned up carbendazim at even higher levels in some batches. But the agency issued no recall of any juice already sitting on store shelves. Food and Drug Administration's public position was that the levels found did not present a safety concern, a judgment the agency made on its own, without pulling a single carton off a single shelf. While that story was unfolding, Minute Maid boxes aimed at families were still carrying the words "good for you" on the packaging, according to court filings, on juice that carries 24 grams of sugar in a single 8-ounce serving, according to Coca-Cola's own nutrition panel. That is close to the entire recommended daily sugar limit for a grown adult, packed into one glass, carrying a fungicide, finding the company never had to put on the label either. Number 3. Tropicana Pure Premium, owned by PepsiCo. For years, the carton said 100% pure and natural in bold letters, while the juice inside went through the same deaeration, tank storage, and flavor pack rebuild as everything else in this aisle. And while the ingredient list quietly carried D-malic acid, a synthetic flavoring agent, roughly 20 separate class actions were filed against Tropicana between 2011 and 2012 over that pure and natural claim, according to Food Navigator's coverage on January 10, 2012. A federal judge in New Jersey eventually threw one of those complaints out, ruling that label claims have to be evaluated product by product rather than as a blanket lie. But the underlying complaint never went away, and Tropicana never changed the process the lawsuits were about. Number 4. Naked Juice, owned by PepsiCo. Every bottle carried the word natural in bold, plastered across an image of whole fruit. Behind that label, according to a class action filed in the fall of 2011, sat ingredients including zinc oxide, ascorbic acid, and calcium pantothenate, a compound produced from formaldehyde, along with genetically modified derived ingredients the label never disclosed. PepsiCo settled that case for $9 million in 2013 and agreed to drop the all-natural claim from its packaging, according to Food Dive's reporting on the settlement. The company never admitted wrongdoing. It just quietly stopped calling the juice something it apparently never was. Number 5. Ocean Spray. This brand built decades of trust on the idea of a farmer-owned cooperative, plain juice from real fruit. In a class action settled for $5.4 million in 2019, plaintiffs alleged that Ocean Spray's cran grape and cran apple bottles carried a no artificial flavors claim, while the juice inside used synthetic malic acid, a flavoring compound derived from petrochemicals rather than fruit, according to top class actions coverage of the settlement. Ocean Spray agreed to drop the no artificial flavors language from those labels within a year of the deal. The juice recipe did not have to change. Only the words on the front did. Number 6. V8 Splash Tropical Blend, owned by Campbell. A 2018 lawsuit covered by Food Navigator on April 10th of that year alleged that V8 Splash is, by the complaint's own breakdown, close to 95% water and high fructose corn syrup, topped off with roughly 3% reconstituted carrot juice and 2% or less of the actual fruit juice the bottle is named after. The label carries a bright picture of ripe oranges and other fruit. The lawsuit argued the product inside barely qualifies as juice at all, closer to flavored sugar water wearing a fruit bowl on the label. If you are finding this useful, do us a favor and leave the number 6 in the comments below, just so we know you are actually here with us. And if you have not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that button, because we still have 5 more names to get through, and the worst one is still coming. Number 7. Sunny D. This is the one brand on our list that we are calling out based on its own ingredient panel rather than a lawsuit or a government finding, so we want to be straight with you about that up front. According to the product's own label, Sunny D contains about 5% juice. The first 2 ingredients are water and high fructose corn syrup, with orange, tangerine, and several other juices showing up afterward at 2% or less each. It sits in the refrigerated juice case next to actual orange juice, wearing sunburst orange coloring, while delivering roughly the same sugar load as a can of soda. Generations of parents have grabbed it off that shelf, assuming the orange on the label meant orange juice was actually the point of the bottle, when water and corn syrup were doing that job instead. Number 8. Capri Sun's 100% juice line, owned by Kraft Heinz. Fruit punch pouch in that line was hit with a class action called Danzy vs. Kraft Heinz, alleging that more than 90% of the citric acid used in the product is synthetic, manufactured using industrial chemical solvents, rather than extracted from fruit, despite the pouch carrying the words 100% juice on the front. The lawsuit argues that a product legally required to be entirely juice under that specific claim should not lean on a lab-made acidifier to hit its tartness, and the case is still working its way through court. Kraft Heinz has not pulled the product or changed the front of the pouch while the case proceeds, so as of right now, that pouch is still sitting on shelves, making the exact claim the lawsuit says it cannot back up. Number 9. Great Value, Walmart store brand. In a case called Reynolds vs. Walmart Stores, filed in the Northern District of Florida, plaintiffs alleged that Walmart's 100% cranberry pomegranate juice was, by volume, mostly apple and grape juice standing in for the fruit named on the label, according to top class actions coverage of the filing. The lawsuit pointed out that Walmart was charging nearly $1 more for that bottle than for its own plain apple juice, a product the complaint called virtually identical on the inside. The fruit pictured on the front was doing almost all of the work the ingredients were supposed to. It is one of the oldest tricks in the entire juice aisle, and one of the hardest for a shopper to catch without pulling out the ingredient list and reading it in order. Number 10. Trop 50 and Tropicana Twister, owned by PepsiCo. A class action filed February 28, 2020, in the Northern District of Illinois, targeted 10 separate Tropicana products flavored with D-malic acid while marketed as natural. According to Food Dive's coverage of the complaint, the lawsuit described malic acid as a chemical manufactured in petrochemical plants from benzene or butane, the same family of raw materials used to make gasoline and lighter fluid. The suit argued that an ingredient built in a petrochemical plant has no business appearing on a bottle, marketed as the lighter, more natural version of orange juice. Number 11. Florida's Natural. Of every brand on this list, this is the one that spent the longest building real trust. For decades, it was the only national orange juice company that used exclusively Florida-grown oranges, owned by an actual cooperative of Florida growers, the closest thing the mainstream juice aisle had to a family farm. Then, in 2022, citrus greening disease wiped out a huge share of the Florida crop, and instead of shrinking the product line, Florida's Natural quietly began blending an orange juice concentrate imported from Mexico. The change showed up nowhere on the front of the carton, only in the fine print of the ingredient list. According to reporting from Truth in Advertising and the watchdog site Mouseprint in 2022, if the one brand that built its entire name on being from Florida can quietly stop being from Florida and still keep selling the same carton, that tells you the whole category runs on the same trust and the same shortcuts, no matter how honest the label looks. None of that means real orange juice does not exist. It means you have to know exactly where to look for it. So here are 5 brands that are actually doing this the right way. First, Uncle Matt's Organic. Every bottle is made from one ingredient, organic oranges, grown by a family that has worked citrus for 4 generations in Florida. It carries United States Department of Agriculture organic certification, and it was the first juice company in the world certified glyphosate residue-free by the Detox Project, an independent lab verification that the fruit carries no trace of the weed killer sprayed on most conventional citrus. It is not from concentrate, it has no added sugar, and you can find it at Kroger, Publix, and Whole Foods. Second, Natalie's Orchid Island Juice Company. This Florida company has been squeezing juice fresh in small batches since 1989, using hand-picked fruit from Florida farmers, with no added sugar, no preservatives, and nothing rebuilt after the fact. Their orange juice has been named America's best-tasting orange juice by Good Housekeeping and Bon Appetit magazine 9 separate times. When a juice this small keeps beating the giants in blind taste tests, that tells you what deaeration and flavor packs are actually covering up. Third, Evolution Fresh. Instead of heat pasteurizing the juice, which is what triggers the need for deaeration and flavor packs in the first place, Evolution Fresh uses a process called high-pressure processing, squeezing the sealed bottle under pressure roughly 5 times what you would find at the bottom of the deepest part of the ocean, to kill bacteria without ever applying heat. The juice is United States Department of Agriculture, Organic and Non-Genetically Modified Organism Project verified, and because there is no heat involved, there is no flavor to rebuild afterward. Look for the self-serve juicing machine. Many Whole Foods market locations keep a machine right in the produce section that squeezes whole oranges into a bottle while you stand there and watch it happen. There is no tank, no flavor pack, and no gap between the fruit and the glass. If your store carries one, it is the closest thing to fresh you will find under a supermarket roof. And fifth, squeeze it yourself. A 3-pound bag of navel oranges typically runs somewhere around $3 to $4 at most grocery stores, and roughly 3 medium oranges will get you close to an 8-ounce glass by hand. Run the math, and a homemade glass usually costs somewhere around $1 to $1.50, compared to roughly 60 to 80 cents for that same 8 ounces poured from a mid-priced carton. So no, squeezing your own will not save you money most weeks. What it buys you instead is a glass with exactly one ingredient in it, no deaeration, no aseptic tank, and no flavor pack engineered anywhere. Sometimes the honest math still says the extra quarter is worth it. Before you head back to that juice aisle, here is how to spot the real thing yourself. Read the legal name on the front first before anything else. Under federal rule, a bottle has to be called a juice cocktail. a juice drink, or a juice beverage the moment it drops below 100% juice. That is not marketing language. It is a legal admission printed right there on the label. Next, look for the percent juice declaration. A separate line federal rule requires on nearly every juice product sold in this country, telling you the real number instead of the picture on the front. That number has to sit somewhere on the package by law, even when the company would clearly rather you never went looking for it. Then think about where you found the bottle and how it got there. Juice sitting in the refrigerated case with a short date on it was never sitting in a tank for a year, while a bottle on a warm, unrefrigerated shelf almost certainly was. And whenever a label uses the word natural, run your eyes down to the ingredient panel and look for malic acid or citric acid sitting near the bottom, because that single line is often the tell that a flavor was rebuilt in a lab rather than left alone from the fruit. One last thing worth remembering. None of the 11 names on this list are hiding from these findings. They are still sitting on the same shelves, in the same coolers, at the same price, because the lawsuits and the fungicide finding and the fine print never once forced a single carton off the market. The only thing that changes what ends up in your cart is you knowing what to look for before you reach for it. None of this means every carton in your refrigerator is out to get you. It means an entire industry built its reputation on a picture of a sunrise and an orange grove, while quietly running the juice inside through a process that has almost nothing to do with either one. Now you have 11 very specific reasons to read that label a little closer, and 5 honest ways to fill your glass instead. If this video opened your eyes to something you had never really thought about before, do us a favor and share it with somebody who still needs to hear it. And if you have not already, go ahead and subscribe, because we will be back soon, uncovering the hidden truth behind another everyday food sitting in your